Welcome to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, where world-changing spiritual entrepreneurs come to deeply awaken the power within to bring forth their greatest purpose, to create massive awakened impact for millions of souls around the planet, while enjoying being in tune with all life and real wealth in all aspects of their lives. I'm your host, Daniel John Hanneman. And hello, everybody. I'm so glad to be with you here. Another amazing episode of Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. And I've got just an amazing heart-centered guest that's just beaming with heart-centered light and awesomeness for you. He's a generous, amazing being, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you John in a moment. We'll talk all about John. He's a publicity person, but actually he's much more than that. He's one of those people who, you know, just by being in the grace of his presence, you just feel loved, you just feel nourished in an extra kind of way. And he's going to have incredible wisdom to share today. It's not going to be just all about publicity and all that's boring. We don't want to just hear about publicity. I mean, it's boring only to hear about publicity. So he's going to share about some deep things because that's who he is. And then he's going to share the masterpiece of who you really are and help you start connecting with that, and how this differentiates, you know, how to share your energy and your message with the world, particularly in these times. So I'm looking forward to getting right into that. Do you want to meditate and make money? Let it be simple. Let it be easy. Let it be fun. Go to yoursacredpurpose.com and get your free Meditate Make Money meditation today. All right. So John, it's so glad to have you here today. We're going to have an amazing show.
Daniel, thank you so much for the time today. I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to share a little bit more about my story and my journey and what it is that I do. But I also, before we start, I want to recognize you and the wonderful work that you're doing and how you are helping and inspiring and supporting and serving people. Having an interviewing background for many years, what you do is not easy. It's really a labor of love. And I really believe that we're stepping into a time of full reciprocity, so to speak. So the light that you see in me is the light that I see in you, Daniel. So I appreciate the invitation. I'm really excited about our conversation today.
Yeah, me too. Thanks so much. And everybody, as we're about to dive in again, just a reminder to go ahead and subscribe. If you're loving the vibe here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And we're just so grateful to have you here. And oh, by the way, I just wanted to mention to you to make sure you check out our Facebook group too, which is soon to be, by the time you hear this broadcast, Awaken to Millions. So make sure you go to Facebook. And I do on Mondays, I do at 3 p.m. Central. I offer the gifts of channeled messages and energy scanning. You see me do on the show. Now it's available for free for you guys to hang out with me. I right there in the group, and I do those for people that show up to those live. Anyway, so without any further ado, let's go fully deeply into this. Let's talk about John. Now, for nearly a decade, John, now I'm going to try to pronounce his name again, but Masiulionis. Okay,
got it. There we go.
I think I got it. Did I nail it, John? Okay.
You got it, Masiulionis. You got it.
Masiulionis. Okay, great. It has been helping creatives to share their gifts and expand their audiences around the world. His ability to highlight the best of what someone brings to the table is uniquely exceptional. And that is such a gift. With the power of enthusiasm and determination, John is a seasoned professional at taking ideas and transforming them into realities. As a publicist for inspirational, spiritual, and children's authors, along with coaches and speakers, John understands the challenges that aspiring and rising heart-centered entrepreneurs just like you face as they step out in faith and follow their own paths of service. He uses his networking savvy, well-developed organizational skills and positive energy to promote and establish name recognition for all of his clients. A true partner in promotion, John empowers his clients with the personal attention and dedication of support they need to fulfill their dreams and expand the reach of their work. John currently resides in lovely San Diego, California, where he is beginning his next steps for the children in the city, which is very important to him. Every month you can see John at the CW San Diego slash CBS 8 as he shares the newest heart-centered children's books from the shining stars in the kid lit community on empowering reads for kids. John also enjoys reading to the little ones in his neighborhood whenever he can, inspiring them to remember how reading is not only fun, but how it helps to create magic and miracles in our lives. And just for the heck of it, we'll share that his long-term plans are just small things, like writing his own children's books and then opening like children's hospices for terminally ill children. Is that Jola or
La Jolla? La Jolla.
La Jolla, right? That's what I thought, but I'm reading it. I'm like, oh, it doesn't look like that. Okay. That's, again, I always say I love podcasts because I can be a goofy fool and not get fired because we're just here being authentic and being in the moment. So
yeah.
Right. Okay. So John, I've just been I so enjoy your spirit of love and generosity and wanting to support the children of the world, so to speak, as a child of God yourself in the world, and just the genuineness of it all. And it just, in our conversation we had in our initial meeting, it's one of those, it's kind of a special connection because of that heartfelt, presence I feel from you. And I feel like that gift that you have is, been forged through your own connection with with yourself, deepening inside yourself, and that you really give an importance to the depth of connection. I think like when people think, oh, he's a publicist, he just is gonna throw me out here all over the place and get me visible and everything. But there's some there's something very important to you as a soul that we're doing this in a deep way, in this deeper connection. And I was really wondering about that because as part of the focus of the show, that if you could share with us a little bit about your background and why it matters so much to you, this whole thing about the deeper connection. And of course, that's a big thing here at the Spiritual Rockstar Show. So I'd love to hear about it from your perspective.
A beautiful quote that I came across several years ago. One of the many amazing people, open-hearted beings, kind souls. Just there's been so many angels on my path throughout these past 39 years. I'm turning 40 in mere days. A little under a decade ago, I had the opportunities to meet Anita Moorjani, the New York Times bestselling author who wrote the book Dying to Be Me, among others. And one of the things that I learned from her is that she said one of her best quotes is, "Life is like a divine tapestry." And I really believe in many ways that everything blends together. When you're taking a look at your life, some people call it the life review. Like, when you transition to the other side, you have this life review, and it's like you and God or you and your loved ones. And it's like you kind of observe your whole life and kind of like, through like a motion picture kind of sense, right? I can look back right now and just the gratitude that I'm feeling is the most that I've ever felt in my entire life. It took me a lot of time, Daniel, to be able to get to this particular point. I really believe that, Dr. Wayne Dyer says that that the best thing that we can do is be a better version of ourselves than what we were the day before, if this makes sense. I had wanted to be a sportscaster growing up, completely outside of the realm of, children's hospices and writing children's books and publicity. I wanted to be, the next Chris Berman on ESPN, to be a sportscaster. I like to feel that the universe had other plans. I began a near 25-year love affair with the world of professional wrestling and sports entertainment. So Vince McMahon's WWE. It was interesting because wrestling had provided a cathartic effect for myself. It was interesting for me growing up because, I feel that there were many blessings that I had experienced even growing up, but I still felt in some way that really the love that I wasn't experiencing, right? It felt that, life was, more of a challenge than more ease and grace. And, wrestling was always there for me. So even if I had any sort of a challenge, whether it be family wise or school wise, wrestling was always there. And this actually led me to, when I was in college, starting a wrestling radio show called Monday Night Mayhem, which lasted for over 10 years. It became one of the first ever wrestling radio podcasts. So it started off as a college radio show, but it morphed into something much greater than that. This was before, your podcast, you're on different sorts of social media platforms. This was in 2002. This was before Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn. MySpace might have just been starting around that particular point in time, but it was grassroots. It was you tell a friend, you tell a friend, you tell a friend. I can look back, and some people might say, well, John, you traveled across the country, 5 WrestleManias, interviewed your childhood heroes. That was cool, right? But there were 2 things that came from that experience with Monday Night Mayhem. One is I was introduced to Children's Hospital in Buffalo, the then Women's and Children's Hospital in Buffalo. So I learned how all children's hospitals have what's known as a child life department, and they provide emotional support and entertainment for children who are going through cancer, dialysis treatments, and who are recovering from surgeries. So they can do simple things like provide children's books for the patients in the hospital, ranging to if, athletes, professional wrestlers, musicians, they're kind of coming through the city and they want to spend some time and visit the kids. They kind of take their mind away from whatever it is that they're going through in the hospital. So whenever the professional wrestlers from the WWE, Impact Wrestling, and Ring of Honor, which is still 3 of the largest wrestling companies in the United States, when they came through Buffalo, I would kind of be the one to know, and I'd say, hey, child life department, X and X wrestlers are in town. Can they visit the kids, kind of thing? That was my earliest introduction really to my work for the children. But again, it was, even when I did my wrestling radio show, Daniel, my radio name was The Big Mosh. I was completely disconnected from who I was at my core. People love the Big Mosh because the Big Mosh could do things for people, right? And I even felt that, there was a greater connection, when I would I'd wear football jerseys and basketball jerseys that had my name on it, right? I didn't know who the hell I was. I felt that, wrestling was my life and the wrestling radio show was my life. During that point in time, I'd also worked in the collections industry, 13 years of that. Now I can look back and again have gratitude and appreciation for that, because that experience helped me to open up my heart, to learn to be more compassionate and respectful to other people. The old paradigm of collections, that mindset is get as much money as you can from someone in the quickest amount of time. So there were different things over time, long period of time, Dan, that I needed to unlearn, to deprogram from, so to speak. So that time frame, the second person that I actually met was a gentleman by the name of Dennis DiPaolo. He is the owner of a well-known Italian restaurant in Buffalo called Elio DiPaolo's. It's one of the largest Italian restaurants in the country. His father, Elio, Dennis's father, Elio, was a famous professional wrestler, was known throughout the world, kind of in the days of Gorgeous George and, Fritz von Erich, all some of the older school wrestlers. He settled down after he retired in Buffalo and opened up a pizza shop over 55 years ago. He didn't want anybody to be hungry. So when the Buffalo Bills first came into existence as one of the AFL teams in the early 60s, the players would go to the restaurant, they'd have dinner because he didn't want them to go hungry, right? Elio also did amazing things for different children's charities in Buffalo as well, too. So as time progressed, the Buffalo Bills, Super Bowl years, Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith, Andre Reed, during the Super Bowl years, when they'd have home victories on Sundays, they'd go to the restaurant, have these big parties. Even Jim Kelly and Jill Kelly, many people know Jim Kelly over the past decade or so with his cancer diagnosis that he's been navigating through that's made national attention. Him and his wife Jill had their wedding reception at Elio DiPaolo's. So Elio was tragically killed crossing the street from his restaurant. It was about 25 years ago or so. So his son Dennis and his other son Michael took over the restaurant. I met Dennis in 2003 during the wrestling radio show, and he really became a father figure for me. One of the many angels on my path who really believed in me more than I even believed in myself. And we did so many wonderful things together. We raised thousands of dollars for different children's charities in Buffalo and Western New York, including Children's Hospital. And I mention his name because not only does he have great Italian food, and you can purchase it really anywhere around the world. You can go to the Elio DiPaolo's website. But if it were not for people like Dennis, I would have probably given up and thrown in the towel a long time ago. There were different experiences that I really had afterwards. The transition of my grandmother's really when my awakening really began to be fueled around that particular point in time. I had a very close relationship growing up with my grandmother, being part Polish. If your listeners know, Babcia's grandmother and Jaja is grandfather. If you learn anything from this episode of our podcast, you'll learn that Babcia's grandmother and Jaja's grandfather. And on the surface, that was one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. But to show how things began to work almost immediately after she transitioned, if I may share just a little brief story here, is that my sister, mother, and I, we were going to the floral shop to get flowers for my grandmother's funeral services. I saw this beautiful crystal cross, and I didn't know why there was this wonderful connection to it. But we were there for the flowers, and I said, all right, it was just a great, really beautiful crystal cross. So driving back to the second portion of the week, I get a call from my father, and he said, John, your team, still working in collections at that point, wanted to, bought Babcia a flower arrangement. You should check it out when you get here. So I walk into the funeral home and I see the flower basket, and in that flower basket, right in the center, was the exact same crystal cross. Nobody knew. So I began to communicate with my grandmother around that point in time. I found myself at the Hay House I Can Do It event as a member in the stands, just checking out, all the great authors and speakers. This was back in July, or it was in the spring of 2014. And afterwards, just being around that energy for 2 full days, I said, I want to help people. I want to inspire people. I want to serve people, but I don't know how. Within a few weeks thereafter, Empowered Publicity came to light. And I started doing publicity work for inspirational and for spiritual authors, and also for speakers and coaches. Things began to increase afterwards in terms of my connection with children. My grandmother, it became increasingly clear that I was meant to move out to California. I remember even for a summer, I think it was around 2016, I found myself as a part-time after school teacher. And I'm wondering, Babcia, why this work for the kids? And she wanted me to spend even more time. So she said, start working with children's authors. Because a lot of times with, spirituality, inspirational messages, sometimes it can be very dense, very heavy. There can be some ego that we kind of have to move through and whatnot. So children's books, in many respects, Daniel, helped to save my life, because reconnecting with my inner child helped me to realize who I am at my core. That it's not the guilt, the judgment, the blame, the shame, the unworthiness. Those are just stories that I told myself. Many of your listeners, I'm sure, have moved through stories, or they're still moving through stories. And just, one of the things that I would like to be able to share is just the importance of reconnecting with your inner child. But even when I look at the experiences, like there was, a diagnosis of testicular cancer that I was given in 2015. I had an eviction notice in my hand about, I'd probably say a little over a year later, close to 2 years later. And on the surface, these were challenging experiences to overcome, but they taught me even the placement of the cancer. It was God's way of saying, John, you can finally learn to love yourself, right? And, over the course, especially of this past, couple of years, I've done a deeper dive between, we share one of many things in common, being fellow channelers. Was introduced to an amazing soul out in Calgary by the name of Ken Lewicki, who has his own business, Ken Lewicki Channeling. Is one of the top channelers in the world. And I learned to be able to channel my own guides and to really reconnect with what I thought was a lost part of me, my own intuition. And just, fast forward to where we're at present moment. It's, Empowered Publicity celebrating its 7-year anniversary. I think I mentioned I'm going to be getting a new dog within the next couple of weeks. There's just so much new happening right now. And I never realized really, almost until now, the blessing that it is, the privilege that it is when someone says, John, I believe that you can help me in sharing my story. And I'm just I'm really starting to see things the clearest that I've ever been able to see things in my entire life.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Beautiful, John. I mean, how awesome. I mean, just again, the sense of the connection. It's amazing, your story too, that it started with like this fascination with wrestling, and like, oh my God, like how you were into it. And I don't know. I didn't watch a lot of wrestling, but I think about some of the characters, the Undertaker, and all these are whatever, Hulk Hogan or what. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't really follow it a whole lot, but like these different ones, and it's like it's an interesting world, right? With masculine energy, tough, and then you got like the pretty boy or whatever. All these different characters they put into it. You could talk for days about it, I'm sure, but it's interesting, all these different characters, and that you're so into that. But and that it's really is a show, right? It's a show, and they're very skilled athletes, but there's a show. We all know that. So, and then ultimately, like it's like that reflection of like, wow, like this, like wow, what's real? It's like getting to something that's really real inside you. And that, part of that was like something real things happening. My grandma dying, cancer, testicular cancer. I mean, things that you can't just be like, oh, whatever, like things that these are awakeners. Like, these big things happen. It's just like it brings you back into that surrender, back into that innocent self, if you want to call it that, or whatever, true self. And it helps you, remind you of things. I had a bit of a challenge the other day, and I just remember at the end of the day, even though, hey, in some ways it was a great day, I had great energy too, but like some challenges, and I just like that sense of surrender at the end of the day. I'm just like, oh, I can just always a reminder, get back into the unconditioned self where where everything is always well, like just reconnecting to that consciously, right? Just reconnecting with that and just really landing, so that whatever happens, when we're more connected to that deeper place, in a way, yeah, everything matters, but then it sort of doesn't, it's like, okay, everything's okay though, like we're still fine. And then more importantly, we get to, as well, on top of that, is we get to experience our innocence and how loved we are and how precious we are, and how precious, what a gift it is to be able to help other people with whatever you guys all do that are listening. And that's what John helps with, is like, I can see how precious, your gift is. And I just, out of loving kindness, I would love to share, your work in the world. Of course, we all need to invest. We all need to, get our divine, our physical substances as well, but within the divine. But it's like, just out of kindness of your heart, you would want to support so many different things. And then your connection with the children is amazing. So yeah, it just is really cool, just taking in everything you said, and that whole journey of like, yeah, just so interesting that your wrestling world, and then these real things come up, and it's like, wait a minute, I just imagine your mind like kind of questioning it a little bit, like, man, why am I so fascinated with all this stuff when there's some really real stuff I need to be connecting with here? And
it's
I know, that's how I heard it, kind of, yeah.
Just to mention one other brief thing, I had someone, it was actually the photographer for my new photo shoot that I actually did, and she was asking me about wrestling. And, she's like, do you really pay attention to it? And it's interesting because my show, I dissolved my show in 2013. So it's been almost 8 years since I've been disconnected from the wrestling world from like a full-time capacity. But I still found myself like, checking out results on Twitter or wrestling websites. And it's so interesting because like, this isn't necessarily about like the violence capacity, even though I do believe that there is some truth to that. Like, do I really, whether people think that wrestling is real, fake, predetermined, whatever the case might be, it doesn't have the highest and best energy when you see two guys kicking the crap out of each other, right? One of the things that I do, like the charity work that they do for, different children's charities, Make-A-Wish and things of that nature. But it's a matter of, we all have the same energetic currency. We all have 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week. And I had to ask myself, and I do this every day now as part of my practice, is this something that is either a part of my life purpose, is helping me bring me closer to my life's purpose, or is bringing me genuine joy, genuine happiness, not like kind of the cathartic effect thing that I mentioned beforehand. And like, it was so challenging to just let go of wrestling, because in many respects, I was wrestling with myself.
Yeah.
In many respects, like it's kind of like, I feel that we have our soul and our higher self, and then we have our ego. And it's literally like this wrestling match almost. And even if you Google Monday Night Mayhem and you check out the logo of my wrestling, of what was the wrestling radio show that I did, it was two guys like grappling. And I literally feel in hindsight that it was like the one represented my soul and my higher self, and the one represented my ego. And, you know, it was this back and forth tussle. And eventually, if we choose this, because we all have free will, if we choose this, we can get to the point where our soul is leading the way. Our ego is still a healthy part of who we are. It's when it gets out of whack that's when, you know, it can be a little bit challenging, right? But I'm just so blessed for that, because if it wasn't for that sort of experience, if it wasn't for the wrestling radio show, if it wasn't for professional wrestling, I wouldn't have met Dennis DiPaolo. I wouldn't have had the vision for the children's hospice, like all of these sorts of things. So this goes back to what I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation and our time together, Daniel, how everything does work itself out. Everything really in life is like a divine tapestry.
Yeah, exactly. And we have our own thing that we're meant to, a gift to share, our own gifts to share. And we make it so complicated, I think, again, in that wrestling, how do I get out there, you know, get in the ego, like the ego or the scared self, like, oh my God, who am I? You know, I'm going to be mincemeat if they're like going in a wrestling ring against those guys. Like, wow, I'm about to get killed. You know, no way I can handle this. But that's how we see sometimes becoming visible, and like even thinking about like trying to get out there, so to speak, or whatever that means. But like, you know, just like that sense of like feeling like very vulnerable, you know, just very vulnerable. Like I could be discovered, you know, that's a feeling that we experience throughout our lives. I don't care who you are. You could be supposedly, the tougher you act, probably the more vulnerable you feel, you know, like, so like underneath there's this sense of like, I could be destroyed if I show too much weakness, or I get too vulnerable. If I open myself up too much, then something bad's going to happen. And my experience is often has been, you know, it's just the opposite, you know, that there's a huge strength in it. And I feel like that's what you have discovered. And that I feel like I'm guessing that's how you, is one of the components of how maybe you support, you know, people in the world, including through the publicity. Like, listen, you share your stories, you share more of you, right? Like, I'm just guessing, but like, I think
that's exactly right. And again, little did I know, like, I'm like, well, 7 years ago, what am I going to call this company? What am I going to call this publicity company? And, you know, empowered publicity, right? There is, on the surface, it can look like I help people promote their books. And there's 100% truth to that. I help people share their stories. There's 100% truth to that. One of the things that, and it's interesting because I haven't dived into the teaching people how to channel or to channel other people's guides, right? But I really feel there's an empowerment component to my work where I help people to connect to the best and the highest versions of themselves, even starting off with just trusting your intuition. Right? So sometimes, you know, clients of mine, a lot of times clients will say, well, John, what are your thoughts on something? Right? You know, is the CBS affiliate in San Diego a better fit than the ABC affiliate in Los Angeles? Right? And if someone asks me a question, I will share my thoughts. But one of my first responses will be, well, what do you think? What does your heart tell you? Right? So it's a matter of trusting yourself when you're making your decisions, especially when it comes to sharing your story. You're right. It can be very, challenging. It can be very vulnerable, especially when you're doing this for the first time. There is even, you know, authors who I've worked with who've written multiple books. One might think that just because you have an award-winning title or a best-selling title or New York Times this or Wall Street Journal that, right? One might think that everything for that person is just rainbows and gumdrops. And they still have, doubts and fears and insecurities and things along the lines of this. And this is just one of the things that I'm super excited about right now, Daniel, because we all went through an extensive amount with COVID, right? And depending upon where you're living in the world, depending upon where you're at on your path, some people still may be going through some COVID-esque related challenges, because literally the pandemic brought up everything for everyone to be able to tend to and nurture. We're at the point right now where we're creating our post-pandemic lives. Things are opening up more. I feel our hearts they're the most open that they've ever been at this particular point in time. Things are opening up, such as churches and bookstores. And so there's, book signings, book fairs, book festivals, conferences. People are able to gather together in community. Neighborhoods are starting to become closer together. So, one of the, people might ask me like, well, John, what was your inspiration for the work that you're doing? And this is why I really credit the work of Mr. Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Fred Rogers, for really helping me to not only reconnect with my inner child, to help me to realize that it's okay to be me. It's okay to be John, not the big mosh, not anything along the lines that just be real, just be me. And this is especially why it's inherently important for me to talk to the kids about this, right? Because kids are going through their own challenges right now. If I can do my part to help them learn to express themselves and their emotions and their feelings and be comfortable with doing that at a very young age, then there's going to be less kids that are going to be in therapists' offices, taking medications, going through extended, prolonged spans of trauma. We can do this now for ourselves. When we do this for ourselves, we're able to show up more in all of our relationships. And if we can do our part, even if we're not a parent, even if we're a caregiver or a custodian of a child, we can do our part to help that little one, because I think that we're done, pardon my French, but I think that we're done with the bullshit, if we so choose, of course. And it's about creating this. We've heard this whole heaven on earth. Is it just a Belinda Carlisle song? Does it really exist? And I feel if we take the time to do more of this every day, right, that we can live in this. It's not just this Disney-esque fairy tale.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. If we just are willing to, part of it for me is it really is, again, the stripping of COVID. Okay, you get back to the COVID. It stripped people of many identities, of many old patterns, because you just couldn't engage in those things now. So it really forced people either to awaken, or again, like I've been saying on this show, like some people went deeper into other patterns or existing patterns. So it happened both ways, if we're honest about. But like there was for a lot of people, it really opened them, and I remember some of my light worker friends are all excited about COVID in some ways, like, whoa, this is great, like they're looking at the opening of it, and so, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, everybody's been talking about authenticity for many years now. This is not a brand new topic at all, but I think people are actually starting to be willing to be authentic, like, I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, you can talk about, the minute you say I'm being authentic, you got to wonder about that. Like, yeah, okay, if you have to try to be authentic, then what's going on? Is that, like, I mean, like, I'm going to be authentic. Okay. Like it can get weird, So I laughed to one of my clients one time where I was talking to them about the subject, and I said, what's going, the world is crazy when we have courses on learning how to be authentic. you know that there's a lot of delusions and a lot of stuff that's built up when you have to learn to become authentic.
Well, I think that it's also a matter of like, and I mean, this is why like it's interesting now, because I feel that a large part of my message is also meant to reach men, because I think that, us as men growing up, we were told to, I mean, even just like the traditional masculine image, like with professional wrestling, 300-pound bodybuilder, jacked up muscles, chiseled pecs, right? Like it's so like, it's okay to feel, it's okay to express, right? And one of the older wounds that many masculine carry, that many men carried is, well, if I open up my heart fully, I might get hurt, right? And so we did different things to protect ourselves, right? And I feel that, in order for us to continue to evolve and become the best versions of ourselves, it's a matter of, there's been this, for a long period of time, it's been this like, when are our partners going to come in? When's our twin flame or divine partner going to come in? And it's a matter of being comfortable within your own skin, right? In order to be able to be fully you got to be comfortable in this, in your earthly suit, so to speak, right? You got to be comfortable with what you look like. You got to be comfortable with any sort of perceived flaws. It's interesting, briefly going back to that Crystal Cross story. So I remember several years ago, my father was in intensive care at a hospital. He had a bleeding, I think it was like a bleeding stomach, because he took ibuprofen for many years. And so I remember I wanted to bring the Crystal Cross to visit my father, right? To bring Babcha with me to be there. And the Crystal Cross tumbled down 20 steps. So where I lived in the Buffalo area, it was an apartment complex. You opened up a door, you walked up 20 steps, and these were deep steps. These weren't just little steps. These were like, so the cross goes like this down 20 steps. I go to the bottom. It should have shattered into a million pieces, but it didn't. And it was a little chipped on certain ends. And what I really felt that the universe was telling me is that, John, are you ready to accept yourself? Are you ready to love yourself unconditionally, perceive flaws and all? And it gets to that point where you can say that, you're showing up, you're doing the work, you're taking the time to become better than who you were yesterday and to keep moving forward, right? So this is, I'm just so grateful just to have the opportunity now to be able to express this, because one of the things, Daniel, with the gifts that you have, the gifts that I have, the gifts that all of your listeners and viewers have of your podcast, right? There are people that are just starting to move through things right now that we moved through previously successfully. And it's up to us, whether if, let's say, I meet someone who was just diagnosed with testicular cancer. And if there's some way, even if it's just sharing my story, if it's just saying, hey, it's okay to love yourself and pass along that kind of, I really wouldn't even call it knowledge. I really wouldn't even call it wisdom. Truth with a capital T, right? That love, pass it down to that person so that they don't necessarily have to go through a long or prolonged experience, right? This is how we help each other. And this is why sometimes people ask, well, John, what's the name of the children's hospice going to be in La Jolla, whenever it opens up? Walking each other home. So many of your listeners and viewers are familiar with the work of Ram Dass, I'm sure. Beloved spiritual teacher, passed away several years ago, really helped a lot of us. One of his coined expressions is that we're all just walking each other home. And I really believe that that all relationships help us to do that. The relationship that we have with ourselves, the relationship that we have with our spouse, with our kids, even the ex-girlfriend who may have dumped us, right? They helped to open our heart. They helped to walk each one of us home. So this is why, like in the work that I do, it's not just contacting television stations. It's not just booking interviews. It's not just peddling books. This really is something that I feel like every time that I help a client of mine, it's like putting a brick in the foundation of the children's hospice, right? And I think that why, especially when we have our platforms right now, it's a matter of choosing to put more good out in the world, because we can repeat the same stuff in different characters, different visuals, whatnot, or we can just make more healthier choices, more balanced choices, because when we're doing all of this, even if we're still learning along the way, we can have more ease, we can have more grace, we can have more peace, and we can have more harmony. That's what I'm choosing, and that's what I encourage your listeners and viewers to do so as well, if they feel called and guided to have more peace and harmony in their life and in their business too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, what it comes up for me is this whole idea we talked about before we came on the show today of embracing the new. When you are more surrendered and you're willing to just to let go of more of what's not you, there's more of a sense of strength, maybe, or a sense of opening to say yes to opportunities, to do things that feel very scary, right? So, yeah, I'm really scared to do my TEDx talk, or go on that television program, or whatever it might be. Like those opportunities, like when some people connect with you subconsciously, they're thinking, I don't think I'm ready. No. Right. So right. So these tapes are running in the back of their mind, but they might tell you they just can't afford it. Right. So like the opportunity is realizing, is first to listen to your intuition, your heart. Like, is this, and your intuition can change a little bit when you're more open. Like, oh, now I can actually hear my deeper intuition. Now I could be ready. Now the angels are singing. Now I could actually maybe do something like, get myself some publicity or whatever, for my book, or for whatever it is that, you want publicity for. But like to share, just knowing it's a sharing of love, if you feel that your work is a sharing of love in the world, and it is about awakening and it's helping others to awaken, well, that's what this show is all about. And this is why I brought John on, is that's what he is. The energy transmission of what he's supporting is exactly that. For my,
and it's also, Daniel, if I just may mention one other thing briefly, if that's okay, is the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people. And I'm not even just referring to, like, if you have a new book, okay, well, a publicist is someone that can support you. There's truth to that if you feel someone like me can help you. But I had mentioned Dennis DePaulo. I had mentioned Ken Lewicki. Ken's longtime business partner, Kim Wirch. She's a wonderful spiritual teacher and healer. She's written the amazing books. Oh gosh, I forgot the names of her books. Waking Up an Empath and Awakened Empath. Her and Ken do healing work together. She does the energy and the physical healing he channels. Megan Dyke, my energy healer, my men's coach, Zach Gallardo. Like, these are different people that I have worked with over the years. And it's so important to make that investment in yourself, because, let's say when you're releasing your book, you can have, one of the old school beliefs is, can I afford it? Can I afford to hire a publicist, or can I afford to hire a women's empowerment coach or a men's coach, whatever the case might be? Whatever that looks like to you, to support yourself with the right people, because it can seem scary, it can seem intimidating, and you can wonder, can you do it? Can you move forward? And I feel that even us as light workers right now, the older kind of light worker paradigm that served its purpose, but it's long since been broken, is, when you'd go to a Hay House event and you'd hear them say, yeah, come back to the next Hay House event, right? So you'd have these people that would be going back to your Wayne Dyers and your Doreen Virtues consistently. The best spiritual teachers, the best healers, the best light workers are the ones that encourage people to tune inward, to be able to trust themselves more, to follow their own heart, right? And it takes time. So there's just, another thing as we begin to wind down our time is that, like, if you feel that you're alone Like I feel, I hear that Michael Jackson song, coming and, you are not alone, for I am here with you. You have this divine support, but there's also, in order for me to fulfill my purpose for the children, there's like amazing people that are really coming into my life right now. And it's important to ask for help. If you need help in a certain way or instance, to ask for that help so that that help can come in, because it's kind of like if, let's say, the universe is bringing in one of my favorite movies I watched, it's been some time, but Will Ferrell's Talladega Nights, where he plays that race car driver, Ricky Bobby. And he, when he's praying, him and his family are praying for they say, dear 8-pound, 6-ounce infant baby Jesus. Let's just say the infant baby Jesus wanted to knock on your doorstep and give you a $5 million check and said, Daniel, here you go. Your life's purpose, have at it. You got to know what to do with it. And if you necessarily don't know where to go or how to start, it's a matter of surrounding yourself with the right people, right? And even if, necessarily you haven't written your book yet, or you haven't, become, you haven't done that TEDx talk just yet. If you're going through some sort of a challenge, some sort of an addiction, if you're going through alcoholism or, struggling with, shopping, I mean, there's different forms of vices. Ask for help. Because there are people that are around you, people that want to help you, but you have to be able to allow the right people to come in. So again, it's interesting because like we're talking about publicity and sharing your message and your story, but I really think there's so many people, and I'm just excited for those people right now that maybe they're going through a challenge, maybe they're going through an addiction right now, but very soon they're going to be fully on the other side of that. And then there's going to be more people that are going to be able to share their story. I get real emotional talking about this, but people, this is how we help one another to heal, right? When we look at it from a non-judgmental, open-hearted, loving, compassionate perspective, because we're all human beings. We're all doing the absolute best that we can. So whenever someone again comes to me and says, John, here's my story. My child is terminally ill and he helped me to inspire to write this children's book. I mean, I can't even put that sort of feeling into words, Daniel. I can't.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, I feel that. I mean, I know with my own clients, it's like whatever their work is in the world, it's not just a mechanical thing for me either, in the work that I do with people. It's, like someone says, hey, I want to sell more beer or something. I don't know. I don't think I'd probably get into it, but it's, I don't know, it depends. But like, nothing against it, but like someone comes to me and they want to make this bigger difference. I want to share everybody these healing modalities that people understand or they're not connected to, and they're, it's going to do this huge thing or whatever it is, whatever the movement might be, or the big mission is. It's like, I feel one with it. I feel like I'm part of that team, letting it happen. I know that you feel the same way. It's like, we're part of a team and we're playing on each other's, we're playing together here. And it's all about love. It's all about service. And when when the ego gets in the way and says, I can't afford, like I even looking at something like ads on Facebook and things like that, like my ego mind that might want to resist the Facebook ads for whatever reason. Oh, well, I don't know about Facebook. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I don't know about spending that money right now, blah, 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 blah. When I listen to my heart and my intuition, if I'm getting that that's true for me, then that's exactly what I'll be doing, regardless of what my mental opinions are. And I think that's what's so precious. One of the precious things we share today is just connecting to your heart of love and intuition and trusting. Source always provides. It's the only thing that ever does provide for everything. And so when you trust, it'll always be there. It'll always be there. And always right. And it's so easily too, the more you're surrendered to letting it be that way. So John, just thank you so much for everything you've shared today. I do know, we are kind of bumping up against our time here, but I'm just so grateful that we had this deep conversation. I mean, we could have done like 10 publicity tips, but people can get that anywhere. I think this is what is so much more important for us to share on this show today is these deeper things. They can get the rest, maybe on your website a little bit, maybe, or
Oh, yeah,
somewhere.
it's actually interesting that you do mention, and just one small, I guess, like I don't really do the whole plugging thing, but since you kind of talked about it, is that I'm really excited because Empowered Publicity is just launched after 7 years its first newsletter. So you can subscribe via the Empowered Publicity website, which is empoweredpublicity.com. When you sign up, you get a free gift of 3 simple yet effective PR tips for the summer. So if you are kind of looking for PR tips for the summer, and that's right there. And yeah, if you're an author, an inspirational, spiritual children's author, if you're a coach, you're a speaker, now really is the time to be able to share your message, because there's the back to school season, there's the holiday season, but it's just like the world is starting to open up again. And it feels like we're really healing right now, and we can continue to heal on a deeper level. And if you feel that I can help, that I can support, you can connect with me via the Empowered Publicity website, social media platforms. I'm sure that you'll provide them in the description as well too. And would love to see how my team and I can support you. And as we begin the 8th year of PR from the heart, I think just the last thing that I want to mention, actually 2 last things briefly, is that sometimes people will say, well, John, why is Empowered Publicity PR from the heart? And I think that just the presence of what we've talked about today and the message in which we've shared, eventually you get to a point in your path where you don't have to try to be authentic. You don't have to try to be yourself. Your energy speaks for itself. Your heart speaks for itself. And the last thing that I just want to mention is to all of your listeners and viewers to support Daniel in the work that he is doing. Having my own program, the Children's Book Spotlight Series, which I've done for over the past 3 years, interviewing award-winning and best-selling children's authors from around the world. It's not easy. It really is a labor of love for all of the work that you do for men and for women, for your listeners, your viewers, for your clients. Support Daniel and his work, because this platform that you are now listening, that you have listened to this interview on, that you've been watching this interview on, this is something that comes from Daniel's heart. He's trying to make a difference in the world. So whether it be to subscribe to his YouTube channel or to put a nice comment on one of his podcast feeds, to be able to like and follow him on social media, there's many ways you can support Daniel. But this is just the one thing, because when my grandmother passed 8 years ago, she said, John, you know what, just keep doing more of this, right? So it's part of my daily practice to not only acknowledge people and see them for who they are, for what they do, but for what they're doing for other people, to help better other people and to better the planet. And this has just been, I don't do very many of these unless it really feels right. I'm just extraordinarily grateful for you seeing me and for you seeing my heart. And I said, I get a little emotional talking about this sort of stuff, because it really means a lot to me and the people that I help and support and inspire and serve, not even just from a client perspective, but a soul perspective. So continue to support Daniel. And I guess that, if you saw the subliminal message, it's just, the Disney magic says it best, to believe in the magic. Because when you're your authentic self, when you choose to become even more of the highest and truest version of yourself, that's when the magic unfolds.
Yes. And so it is. All right. Okay. Well, that is so awesome. And thank you for sharing all that, John. I didn't pay John to plug me today. Okay. So, and I want, again, definitely, I'm sure, if you guys are feeling the connection, you will definitely connect with John at Empowered Publicity. And, yeah, so definitely let's subscribe. Okay. All right. And from there, John, I want to go ahead and just share for a minute or two, maybe some of the divine messages that might be coming in for me to share with you today. Are you ready to receive?
I am indeed ready to receive. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay, awesome. So let me go ahead and tune in. So what I'm seeing is I'm just seeing the message comes through as just publicity everywhere. And I just feel like, there's these, so I share it the way it comes through, and then it may or may not make sense, but like, there's like the sense of all these publicity houses that are getting infused with empowered publicity. So I have a feeling that there could be opportunities for you to vibrationally upgrade other agencies out there and give them consultation in helping that transform their own publicity businesses. So I just share it raw the way it comes through. So new idea, I'm sure. I don't think you probably were thinking about that one. So I'm just getting this. I say it comes through. I just see that there's so much more. I see there's even so much more that wants to happen through your energy and your work, and how it's like the publicity world is part of the change that wants to happen, and you're doing it in your lane right now, but I feel there's more channels for that to happen. So not sure on the details, but I just share as it comes through, John. I'm going to share one or two more things here in a moment. Okay. Okay, I'm getting something about, it may or may not resonate, but I just share what comes through. I get something about forgiving your father. So something about, again, I'm sure you've done a lot of work on everything because you're that kind of person. I'm just getting, that that there's something there going on. So let me tune in this a little bit more on that real quick. It's just like he, just a reminder, he didn't know any better, he felt the strong words, but he just kind of like, he felt like, I'll try to clean it up a little bit. It felt like a nothing. It felt like a nothing, like, oh, it just like, he felt so small, so shamed, himself. And then he translated some of that into tough love, and maybe heavy-handed ways at times and things like that. But, he was just, as acting out of his own crisis in a way inside himself, and didn't know how to handle it. So a lot was thrust upon him suddenly in his life, it feels like, with family obligations maybe, or something like that. And it was very challenging for him for many years. So it's just a reminder, just like, okay, infinite slack, because he just didn't know any better, and just remembering that and feeling that in your heart. So yeah, you get a lot of emotion around that, John. So that's another one. Let me see if I get one last one. I always like to get three. Oh, okay, perfect. All right, so I'm getting, and I'm sure, maybe we even talked about this, but it was a while since we had that conversation. But I guess something with healing hands are strong for you too. So it's a common one I get in readings, but like, because I'm meant to encourage that with people, but is to use your it could be distance healing, just to use your healing hands more, is that they're asking for more of that. So you can touch people's lives profoundly with your healing energy overall. And then when you use those healing hands, you're willing to claim more of the healer you are. That can be a big game changer for people and overall. So anyway, so those are the three messages today, John. Any quick feedback, thoughts, questions?
Yeah, two things actually come to mind. One is I'm excited because I'm going to be taking Reiki 1 and Reiki 2
cool.
in the middle of September. So it's like, I'm very blessed for the channeling work, and I've been getting guidance to be able to do that, because I feel that we're all healers in some way. And it's a matter of, if we decide to step more into it, the time will reveal itself. And that process with healing with my father has already begun, which sometimes when we have, whether it be in some way, we can have the mother wound, we can have the father wound, maybe there's a little bit of both kind of thing. And it's also the timing of things, because, one of the reasons why I feel I incarnated here this go around is to be a good father. Now, my little one's not in the equation yet. My life partner hasn't revealed herself yet, right? But I feel that in order for you to be able to attract your life partner is to be able to have healing, especially, if you're masculine, to be able to have healing with your original feminine blueprint, which here on earth is mom, right? And then, especially when it comes to being a father, it's a matter of incorporating that forgiveness work with your own father and basically talking to your child as if you're already a parent, right? You're reparenting your own inner child. So these are encouraging words that I'm hearing, and it's really good to hear that things are already en route just with all of that. So thank you for the confirmation of this. I really appreciate it.
Sure thing. Yeah, I mean, that's cool. A lot of times I do pick up on things people are just about to step into, and I'm like, yeah, I noticed this thing's happening, and happens a lot of times with my guests here, especially. So, so that's really awesome. And so again, John, I'm just so grateful to have you here. Just as a reminder, everybody, you can check me out at yoursacredpurpose.com if you want to go ahead and see about getting your own consultation through energy scanning from me. There's an opportunity to do that on my website at yoursacredpurpose.com. Especially if you're someone who has a very heartfelt, of course, big purpose and mission, I'd love to support you in letting it really land, getting the clarity so that you can know what it is exactly and to bring it forth in the world in the most expanded, beautiful way from presence. So, and then there's also a free meditation there, Meditate and Make Money. Make sure you grab that. So yoursacredpurpose.com. All right, so John, I'm going to give you the last word on the show. So any last words for the audience as we're wrapping it up?
Yes. Celebrate. I know that, from when we're recording this interview, it's literally just been days after the 4th of July holiday, but to really embrace and celebrate. So it's very easy. I know that many people during COVID that said, man, I can't wait for COVID to be over. And it's like they wanted to fast forward, close to 18 months of their life. They just wanted to get to the next thing. Or in life, it's just about, I'll be happy when I get my brand new purple Mercedes Benz, or when I get my dream house, or when I meet my life partner kind of thing, or when I get the job I've been striving for. Embrace yourself right now and celebrate where you are right now, because I really believe that the best memories and moments of your life have not even happened yet. And for those who are feeling challenged, wounded in some way, shape, or form, you may even be going through the proverbial, divine storm where it seems like everything could possibly be going wrong. Trust the fact that the best memories and moments of your life have not even happened yet. When I was going through different dark times in my life, I always told myself that. And that helped me to get through those times, because just what we're stepping into right now, it really is magical in many ways. And the last thing to be able to share is I really have an affinity for the moon and the stars. And this is one of the things that I always mention whenever I host the my episodes of the children's book Spotlight series, but I feel that we're all shining stars. Yeah. So this is kind of, it's like a little inner child energy, but this represents you, Daniel. This shining star represents all of your listeners and viewers. This is really, we're soft and we're cuddly and we're perfect just the way that we are. So just to be able to remember that you too are a shining star. Thank you again for the invitation, for the time today. This has been one of my favorite interviews that I've ever had the opportunities to do.
Oh, thank you, John. It's been an amazing time together with you on my part as well. And excuse me. And I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful for all our listeners and your amazing hearts. And we're grateful you connected with us today. And we look forward to having you back, hopefully. So keep on tuning in, and we'll keep on rocking it here at Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Till the next time, everyone. You're listening to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Stay tuned for our next upcoming new episodes each Wednesday and Saturday. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review to help us to serve you best. As a reminder, you can get your free Meditate and Make Money meditation at www.yoursacredpurpose.com to rock your sacred purpose. Goodbye for now, everybody.